What's up, y'all? This is kind of a leftover episode. I wanted to get to a lot of things last podcast, and it ran long, and I left out some pretty cool topics. We're going to cover them. But, like every podcast, in the break between last podcast and this new one, some shit has hit the fan on the news wire. So, I'm going to briefly, quickly cover three stories, possibly a fourth. You know what? Fuck it. There's definitely going to be four. But it's going to be good. We're only going to cover easy topics, such as the Don't Say Gay bill that DeSantis just signed in Florida, what the fuck is going on with Clarence Thomas's whore wife, and for a nation that's built on Puritan values, we sure look the other way when an enemy of our enemy is actually our friend, or whatever that saying is. An enemy of an enemy is an ally. I think that's the saying, not a friend. But anyway, the U.S. is currently embracing a nation that it once denounced over its political sliding into areas where the West doesn't want it to slide to. But because of Ukraine and Russia, we're now embracing this nation. And we're going to kick off the news segment with this story. But I'm going to have to pause because I have the door closed and LaFonda is having herself a goddamn conniption. And this story is from Axios. Inside Biden's unlikely embrace of Poland. Poland. The motherfucker that kicked off World War II. President Biden's recent visit to Poland will punctuate the country's unlikely turn from illiberal agitator to symbol of European solidarity. LaFonda, chill, baby girl, chill. Putting on hold U.S. and EU concerns about Warsaw, that is the capital of Poland, Warsaw's democratic backsliding to celebrate its embrace of over 2 million Ukrainian refugees. Well, first off, kudos to Poland taking in over 2 mil Ukrainian refugees. That's great. It's unfortunate that that's even happening, and I don't think unfortunate is a good enough word. It's a travesty. It's an evil. But anyway, back to Poland here. Just recently, October 2020, Biden described Poland in the same breath as Hungary and Belarus. Belarus? I know those cunts. I think they're on Russia's side. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Anyway, let me start over. In October 2020, Biden described Poland in the same breath as Hungary and Belarus, while warning about the rise of totalitarian regimes. Today, Poland is leading the West and calling for maximalist support for Ukraine as its democracy threatens to be crushed by Vladimir Putin. So what's the background here? Poland's ruling Law and Justice Party, the PIS party, I shit you not, it is PIS, has been clashing with the EU ever since coming to power in 2015, when it began pursuing a right-wing agenda that Brussels claims has violated its rule of law standards. Amid the long-running dispute with Brussels, Poland's leaders found a friend in Donald Trump, who met with President Andrzej Duda at least 5 times during his presidency. Now, if you can remember that nightmarish fever dream that was the 4 years of the Donald Trump presidency, you probably remember that name, Andrzej Duda. LaFonda, I swear to God, I'm going to put you in a wood chipper if you don't chill. And I remember a lot of liberal media, or just the mass majority of the media that's not Fox News, was shitting on this guy, and I never heard of him. But I remember this Duda guy. He's not a good guy, I was told. And Biden backed me up on that. And the fact that Trump was embracing him, it points me that, our opinion of this Duda guy is spot on. Trump was more popular in Poland in 2020 than in any other European country, including Hungary. Wow. I wonder what Trump's popularity in Belarus and Russia is. That's something I really would like to find out, but I don't know if you can. But anyway, I can't get sidetracked. I'm trying to speed through here. So flash forward to today. The EU has for months been withholding billions in dollars in pandemic recovery funds over Poland's crackdown on judicial independence. Well, see, that's the double-edged sword. You're holding back billions of dollars to help fight this mass killer that is COVID-19 because of political reasons that don't align with theirs. However, it kind of makes sense. You don't want to give a totalitarian regime billions of dollars because they're probably not going to use it for COVID-19 relief. The EU has for months been withholding billions of dollars in pandemic recovery funds over Poland's crackdown on judicial independence, prompting the leader of PiS to accuse Germany of seeking to turn the EU into a German Fourth Reich. Ooh, I'm sure the Germans love the Fourth Reich getting thrown in their face. The EU's judicial dispute with Poland hasn't ended, but European leaders are searching for a resolution that would unlock the funds and help Warsaw manage the flood of Ukrainian refugees entering the country. Stephen Moll, a former U.S. ambassador to Poland, tells Axios concerns about democratic backsliding haven't gone away, but that right now there's a house on fire right next door to a key security and intelligence ally that plays a stabilizing role in Europe. Even before the Ukraine crisis eclipsed domestic issues, Duda, the president of Poland, had taken a number of steps to push Polish politics back to the center and halt the country's drift towards isolation. In December, for example, Duda, I'm sorry, every time I say that name, that's what I think of, that fucking song. Duda vetoed a controversial media law condemned by the U.S. for appearing to target an American-owned news station often critical of the government. So that's good, he vetoed that. He also has proposed a compromise to end the EU courts dispute. Earlier this month, vetoed a law that would have restricted teaching LGBT and reproductive rights in schools, saying we don't need more conflicts. So far, so good, baby. At a time of national emergency, Duda is the one who's representing Poland's interests on an issue which has seized Polish society. He's made it a lot easier for the Biden administration to embrace Poland as an ally as we need to. Who's saying this? Not Stephen Moll. Who's the other jabroni? Oh, Daniel Fried. Fried? I don't know. That's who said that. But again, should we embrace in Poland? Just because they're taking in refugees, just because he's been vetoing some things lately, maybe the whole thing ain't looking so peachy. You know what I'm saying? Opposition leaders and critics inside the EU argue that Duda's moderation is a smokescreen, and that the West should continue to hold Poland accountable for its democratic backsliding ahead of next year's elections. PiS, again, what maybe PiS doesn't mean the same thing in Polish as it does to Americans, but if my party's acronym literally was PiS, I would raise my hand and be like, can we add another letter in there somewhere, please? Anyway, PiS conducts international policy for the purpose of national policy. Wojciech Olszagaszka, I saw a Lord of the Rings orc there, former Polish presidential candidate. That means they'll embrace a popular cause like solidarity with Ukraine while continuing to conduct populist policy within the country. Polish society, not just Polish politics, has fully mobilized behind Ukraine. Ukrainians are permitted to travel on the state-run railway system for free and have been granted access to healthcare, education, and other benefits. Oh, are you taking Americans? Few refugee camps exist because so many Polish families have welcomed Ukrainians into their homes, including traditionality, chill, make me mess up on words. Polish families have welcomed Ukrainians into their homes, including traditionally anti-immigrant government officials. Well, again, I wonder if it's because the Ukrainians are white people. Would they be taking in refugees from, say, a more colorful European country? I doubt it. It's the Polish national consensus, and you basically have the whole society organizing itself to help people, said Fried, who spoke to Axios while returning from a visit to Warsaw. By the way, I feel like I should tell you what this guy's credentials are here, this Fried guy. Where did he go? Boy, I tell ya, I should not have finished that joint from last night before I recorded. Okay, Daniel Fried is he's a former ambassador to Poland, another one. So we have multiple former ambassadors here being quoted. And when you ask them why are they wanting to help so many Ukrainian people, they'll look at you and say, because that was us. Referring to Poland's history under Nazi and Soviet occupation. Let's not forget the Soviets did some horrific atrocities to Poland too. Not as bad as the Nazis, of course, but, got to keep things in perspective. Poles think they're suffering just as we suffered, speaking of the Ukrainians. But we can do something about it because we're in NATO, we're safe, and by God, it's our obligation. It's really quite staring. So, but again, it begs the question, if Poland is if it's currently sliding so bad to the right, And just because they're doing one good thing, which is a big thing, don't get me wrong, they're doing a good thing that's massive. Is it okay for us to look past, some of the other bad things that are going on? Now, if they were like genociding people or, throwing gay people off buildings like some of our other allies do, I would say, fuck Poland. I don't give a fuck how many refugees you take in. You're still a pile of shit. But you also have to be careful. You can't tell countries what to do, basically. And I don't like that America thinks that we're the world police, that we can basically dictate what should be and what has to be to nations that we don't know shit about. And they're not us. Who cares? Like, can you imagine during the Trump-Biden election that some random state ahead from another country came over here and told us how we should be doing things? Imagine if let's pick a country here. LaFonda, for the love of God. Fine, I'll pick Egypt, you cat god. Imagine if the president or whoever, the king or the prince, I'm sorry, I don't know Egypt's government, but let's, for the sake of the argument here, let's say the president of Egypt said, you know what? I'm sick of watching Joe Biden and Donald Trump debate like this. This is embarrassing. I'm going to fly over there, go to the Capitol, and I'm going to tell them what they should do. I think in my lifetime, only one state ahead has done that, and that's Netanyahu, that cocksucker from Israel. But can you imagine if that happened, the Egypt scenario? Most Americans' heads would explode, and not just the Republicans. I would think most liberals, I think most Americans in general, doesn't matter what your political affiliation would be upset. But yeah, we do it all the goddamn time. So, a little hypocritical to me. But again, I don't think Poland is as bad as some of our other adversaries, just based on that article. Not true. Maybe I shouldn't say this because I don't know the full spectrum of what's happening in Poland. But based on that article, I'd have to say I don't see anything super egregious there. He vetoed that. Let's not teach LGBTQ and not gender reassignment. That's Florida stuff. But I think they're just teaching about sex in school. He vetoed that, which is good. But that's just one example. Who knows if there's other crazy shit that's being put in schools there? I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, Poland has just as bad of an education system as the state of Florida. We don't know. But they're taking in refugees. They're fighting. You don't think they're going to kick the fucking shit out of any Russian that steps foot into Poland? If, and all signs point to this ain't happening, but worst case scenario, Russia takes over Ukraine and keeps going east. No, wait, west. Jesus Christ. They keep going west, which I don't think is going to happen because it looks like there's going to be a peace talk coming up soon. Well, again, there's been a lot of these, but this one looks legit. There's been other ones that I thought were legit too, so I don't know. I have hope in this one, is my point. You don't think Poland's going to give Russia a run for their money? I mean, again, I don't know if Poland is as good of fighters as the Ukraine is, but if Russia barely survives Ukraine, they're going to get fucking stomped on by Poland, which is kind of what you want. Is what you want. If you want to side with the good guys, I guess. But you just have to be careful telling countries what they can and cannot do. Especially if you turn a blind eye to the Saudi Arabias of the world. You turn your blind eye to I just had another one. Not so much Israel compared to Saudi Arabia, but China. Come on, man. Come on. It's not as bad as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the worst one, in my opinion. So I understand when our so-called adversaries say, well, you don't tell us what to do, and then we get all in a huff like we should. And then they bring up, well, you don't hold Saudi Arabia accountable, Israel accountable, you don't hold China accountable. So a little hypocritical here, don't you think, America? And then that's usually we're plugging our ears by then, and then we unplug them and say, what the fuck are you saying? America freedom, bitch. And then we start launching weapons. But anyway, let's move on. Oops, I guess I should have closure on this. As long as Poland isn't genociding people or, like I said, throwing gays out of buildings, I say let them take Ukrainian refugees in, give them their COVID-19 money, and just hope for the best. Anyway, moving on. Governor DeSantis signs Don't Say Gay bill into law. Well, Florida, you never cease to surprise me. Once you think you hit rock bottom, you somehow find a shovel and you just keep digging. Now, before I go into let me back up here. Now, on the surface, I think the Don't Say Gay bill is a horrific name for a bill. I don't know why they couldn't name it more appropriately. But the Don't Say Gay bill, again, wording. You have the piss party and then you have the Don't Say Gay bill. I mean, don't these people that are running these giant, probably million, if not $1 billion initiatives, and they're running political parties, don't you think one of the very first things they got to work on is the fucking name? But anyway, before I go into everything here, I'm going to try my best to kind of explain what's in this bill, because I think a lot of people are being misled about what's in it and not in it. And I'm going to try to summarize it as best I can as well, because again, I'm not spending a lot of time on this. I'm not an expert on this. That too. I wish I had some teachers on here that I could talk to. I wish I had some students that I could talk to. I wish I had some proponents of the bill that I could talk to. But I do think on the surface, the Don't Say Gay bill, the fucking name, has its aim is true. I'll say that, which may shock and appall some of you, but give me a chance here. On the surface, the bill is instructing public schools to ban classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity from kindergarten through the 3rd grade. That's actually what the bill is. To ban classroom instructions on sexual orientation and gender identity from kindergarten through 3rd grade. Now, I don't see why that's so bad or why that's so wrong. I don't think you should be discussing those things with kindergartners through 3rd graders. I really don't. Now, I think it's a little bit murkier if a child comes to a teacher one-on-one and asks a question. That's why I think teachers have a unique and important job. I don't think the repercussions, which I'm going to get to later in this bill, merit what is a very important conversation. Now, in front of the entire classroom with all the other students, I think is an entirely different example. But on a one-on-one, I don't think you can judge them. I don't think you can judge it across the board. There's going to be different scenarios. There's going to be different relationships. I mean, different ages. It's tough. It's tough. There was teachers in my life that I enjoy talking to them on a one-on-one basis. And they would talk to me in ways that they would not talk to me if it was in front of my classmates or other teachers or parents or just any other people. But when it's a one-on-one and I'm asking them about whatever, and they can talk to me kind of man to man or adult to adult, however you want to describe it. And I think that those conversations between teachers and students is very important. From kindergarten through college, honestly, I do. But classroom instruction, that terminology to me means the teachers or the principals or whoever are instructing kindergartners through 3rd graders about things that, I'm sorry, you don't know shit by that age. In my opinion, you don't. Well, maybe, okay, I take that back. I'm thinking more about gender identity, but I think sexual orientation, maybe. But again, a 3rd grader, how old is a 3rd grader? See, to me, a 3rd grader is like 10 or 11. How old are 3rd graders? I'm definitely going to be on the search list now. 8 to 9, even younger. Okay. So I'm sorry, if you're under, well, I don't know, man. I don't even know. I'm not going to put a stupid, just random age out there, but I think an 8 to 9-year-old asking teachers or principals or whoever they're talking to in the classroom about switching genders or LGBTQ stuff, unless it's being taught as a learning tool like history or something, or maybe they're talking about a civics class, but again, 8 to 9-year-olds, I don't think they have those classes. When I was in 3rd grade, I think we were still doing show and tell. In my head, that's what we were doing. We weren't discussing, well, there was not the LGBTQ acronym then, but we weren't discussing gay or lesbian stuff. We definitely weren't discussing gender identity. So I understand that the 2020s are not the 1990s. I'm reminded of that every single fucking day. Trust me. But so I don't disagree with this about what what the goal is, or what the actual want of the bill is. Now, once you get into the fine print, you're like, holy shit, this is some wild, scary shit. The bill, which will go into effect July 1st, led to a backlash across the country, including protests among students and educators, as well as public opposition from corporate leaders. For higher grade levels, the bill says that instruction should be age appropriate and developmentally appropriate by state academic standards. Now that's a fail. That's a fail. That's strike 1, 2, 3, and somehow you struck out number 4. Because I'm sorry, I just do not trust the state of Florida's academic standards on pretty much anything. Anything. I don't think they teach kids how to wipe their ass correctly. And when you have weird terminology like age appropriate and developmentally appropriate, there is a lot of gray area there with those definitions. And again, I'm sorry to be shitting on Florida. I try not to judge an entire state based on a few bad apples, but Florida has a reputation for a reason. It also allows parents to sue schools or teachers that engage in these topics. Now that, again, is too fucking far. It's absurd. It's dangerous. That's as bad as churches being able to hire personal policing. Oh, wait, they have that already. Ugh. First off, the parents of today, I know, LaFonda, you agree. Parents of today are so much worse than the parents back in my day. Now, I'm sure I sound like an old man, get off my lawn kind of bitch right now, but I'm serious. I have seen, true. There's a caveat to what I'm about to say. I have seen some insane videos of parents screaming the most outrageous things to elected officials, whether it be the superintendent, the principals, teachers, whoever. Now, true, you're only being shown the worst. So across this great nation of 50 states, how many states are having that on a consistent basis? I don't know. I do know that I have some teacher friends. Some in blue states, some in red states, but who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter what the color of the state is. I have heard that parents seem to think that they know better than teachers about everything, and that the kids should be believed over the teachers and any adult for that matter. And I'm sorry, that's just not correct. And this is my generation doing it. There are some Gen Xers in there too, but my generation is making some horrific mistakes where they think, well, I know better than the teacher. In fact, I know better than any adult. And in fact, my kid is right. I'm gonna believe an 8-year-old is telling me the truth over an adult whose job it is to literally tell the truth. So parents these days, I'm not going to call them scum because I don't want to paint broad strokes here, but the scummy level is much higher than I anticipated when I was growing up. I thought we'd be a lot better than our parents, but maybe I'm in a unique position of being in my mid-30s and having a lot of friends that have kids and seeing how they treat their kids, and how I have some older family members that are my cousins, but they're in their 40s and 50s, and I see how they treat their kids, and I think, oh, it's all cyclical. We're all cunts. We're all just fucking assholes. We're all figuring it out day by day. We don't have a plan. But anyway, the fact that the Florida, of all states, the fact that Florida is giving this much power to parents to sue schools and teachers, it's unfathomable. I never thought this would happen. DeSantis and Republicans claim that parents should be the ones to bring up topics of sexual orientation and gender identity with their children, but critics say the bill amounts to censorship. Now, again, on paper, DeSantis and the Republicans are correct. It should be up to the parents to talk to your kids about these things. But that's in fantasy world. That's in imagination land. That's basically what the Christians believe in this fairy tale of a world that they don't actually do, but they preach. The mass majority of parents do not want to talk to their kids about this. The mass majority of parents will probably not be happy if the child comes to them with these questions. And in fact, again, maybe it's a different time, but in the 90s, If I went up to my parents and said, you know what, I'm thinking of making my penis into a vagina. What do you think about that? I feel like my parents would say, where are you getting this from? Don't talk to me about this. Go talk to your teachers or something. In all seriousness, if I actually did do that, if I actually went to my parents and told them that, I think that would just be laughed at. But anyway, so again, the Republicans, well, I can't just say the Republicans because the Democrats do it too, but at least politicians in this country, and I will say the majority of the time it is the Republicans, they like to paint this picture of this pristine, perfect utopia of a society if they just had more Christian Puritan values. Because I'm sorry, this Don't Say Gay bill is sprinkled with religious country, specifically from the Christians. I'm sorry. I think Christians probably wrote this fucking bill. People have also expressed concern that singling out LGBTQ topics in this manner implies that they are inappropriate or flat out wrong. And I'm sorry, I need to finish my point there. They believe in this utopia that doesn't exist. It will never exist. Utopias are no such, they're not real. They have never existed. The actual terminal, if you actually look at the Latin meaning of utopia, it means does not exist because there's no such thing as perfection. There isn't an anything. Specifically, if perfection is real, do you think you'd be finding anything that's perfect in the fucking state of Florida? I have been to Florida, people. You are not wrong in your judgment. I spent 3 days in Miami. I had never seen dinosaurs run across the road. Now, I can't blame Florida for having lizards and, well, fucking crocodiles running across the street. I can't blame them. They decided to build this metropolis on a fucking swamp. But the fucking people, just the people, and they're so cocky. Now, it's not just Floridas that have this problem. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not going to just dive deep into my problems with Florida. But to say that the parents should do all this and that it'll go smoothly like a scene from Mayberry from Andy Griffith, it ain't going to happen. If Opie went to Andy Griffith and said, hey, Pa, I heard boys are taking butcher knives and slicing their penis in half and mushing it into a vagina like a mashed potatoes. Do you think Andy Griffith would put his aw shucks fist on his hips and say, now, Opie, where you been hearing this from? No, they would have hung Opie. Anyway, and the critics are right, in my opinion. The fact that they give this power to the parents like this really is telling everyone that we should not be encouraging this, which is wrong. Okay? I don't think you should be encouraging children, teenagers, to change genders or become gay or whatnot, but you shouldn't discourage it, is my point. I don't think any teacher of worth is going to come to a classroom to a bunch of 15-year-olds unprompted and say, you know what we're going to talk about today? I know you think this is history class and you think we're going to be teaching about, I'm going to be talking about the Egyptians, but no, we're going to talk about the importance of gender identity. Now, I don't think that should be happening, but I don't think that is happening. And if it is happening, it's to such a small degree. So what does DeSantis say all this? We will make sure parents can send their kids to school to get an education, not an indoctrination. Oh, God. Indoctrination. This, again, just puritanical filth. Saying that the elites in the school are going to indoctrinate my child. Well, then why are you putting them in school? Why are you putting them in a public school? If you're afraid of this indoctrination, this woke indoctrination, keep your kids at home. Teach them at home. Teach them to fear things that are new and different. Teach them to judge people that aren't exactly like them. It's disgusting. DeSantis accused critics of the bill of supporting sexualizing kids in kindergarten, injecting woke gender ideology into second-grade classrooms, enabling school to transition students to a different gender without the knowledge of the parent, much less without the parent's consent. And by the way, a spokesperson of DeSantis also called critics of this bill pedophiles. So everything in that statement is wrong. I don't think anyone is sexualizing kindergartners by answering a question a kindergartner asks. that is outrageous to me. But again, DeSantis, he is a threat to be taken seriously here. He and Trump are the leaders of the Republican Party right now. And I'm sorry, I'm reading what terminology DeSantis is saying. We're here for education, not indoctrination. I mean, that just is ripe with political speech. He's probably going to repeat that during the debates. He's going to be a popular guy, unfortunately. So what's the other side saying? Well, obviously they're not pleased. LGBTQ advocacy group Equality Florida, well, again, you're in the wrong state for that, along with politicians like State Rep Michelle Rayner, held their own press conference after the signing, accusing DeSantis of gaslighting critics of the bill and putting children in harm's way to promote a future presidential campaign platform. That I agree with 120%. Equality Florida is creating a legal defense fund to support LGBTQ youth and their families who feel the bill violates their rights. Litigation is coming, and it will be swift and fierce. Equality Florida's senior political director Joe Saunders said, "Every student deserves to feel safe and welcome in the classroom. Our LGBTQ..." Oh, wait, they added another letter? Wait, is that an I? I don't know what... There's something next to the Q, but is that an I? LGBTQI+? You gotta stop. You gotta stop with this. You can't keep adding shit. Pretty soon it's gonna be the whole goddamn alphabet. LGBTQ. I don't know what I means. Inclusive, maybe? I don't know. I'm too lazy to look it up. But you know what? I shouldn't be that outraged. It adds in, half a second? Whatever. Okay, let me back up here. Enough with the letters, man. Every student deserves to feel safe and welcome in the classroom. Our LGBTQI+ youth deserve to be affirmed and accepted just as they are. President Biden tweeted Monday afternoon. Oh, I get it. That's a Biden tweet. He probably just added another vowel, or he just to make sure. Well, again, I agree with everything that the critics are saying. However, I still don't think that teachers should be teaching sexual orientation, gender identity, kindergartners through third grade. But I don't think it's happening. I think this is a made up issue. Just like critical race theory. It's all made up. Critical race theory is not separating you by race and putting all white kids in the corner and having every other person of color pointing and laughing at them. That doesn't exist either. Anyway, back to what Biden said. My administration will continue to fight for dignity and opportunity for every student and family in Florida and around the country. Disney, oh, that great empire, released a statement moments after DeSantis signed the bill, lambasting it by saying it should never have passed and should never have been signed into law. Our goal as a company is for this law to be repealed by the legislature or struck down in the courts, and we remain committed to supporting the national and state organizations working to achieve that, a Disney spokesperson said. Oh, well, Disney, you try. If you really care, you should just pull out of Florida. You can afford it. Make another Cars movie. Cars 5. It's going to be like the Fast and the Furious series. So, don't say gay, Bill. I agree with not teaching that stuff in the schools for kindergartners up to the third grade. But then it gets so fucking bad that any agreement I had with that bill fizzles like Thanos' snap so quickly. So, fuck you, DeSantis. I hope a tree falls on you like Greg Abbott. But lastly, but not leastly, to summarize what's been going on in the Supreme Court, no, not Ketanji Jackson, who was a fucking queen while she was getting asked the most stupid questions, insulting questions, and outright, I know we don't like to say this word anymore, so let me think of a different word. Mentally challenged questions, particularly from Cruz and Hawley and other mooks. And she took it. I can't imagine she won't be voted in by whenever the deadline is. But the other Supreme Court justice issue that's been going on is that Clarence Thomas has disappeared off the face of the earth. I was hoping he died in his bathtub and alone and that no one found him for days. And when they did, because of the smell, they looked in the bathtub and he was just a honeycomb of a human. That is what I was hoping for. But sadly, they say he was ill. But really what I think it is that he was playing damage control over his crazy bulldog bitch of a wife What? It doesn't matter what her name is, but the fact is, this crazy woman is such a strong supporter of don't steal the seal. Whatever. She's a big supporter of Trump. She believes that he won the election and that there's a cabal within the Democratic Party. And it's just crazy shit. And this is the wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice. She also supported the January 6th riot. She, I think, donated money to it. And you would think, well, that's just her. Did it actually affect one of the worst Supreme Court justices this country has ever had? Well, yes. Because in that Supreme Court decision a couple months ago about whether or not the January 6th Commission could go after the Trump documents, I believe that's what it was, every Supreme Court justice voted, yeah, they can, even the ones Trump put in there, except one, Clarence Thomas. Huh. That aligns with what his wife believes. So now you can think he perjured himself. And people are calling him to not only recuse himself from any January 6th Supreme Court stuff, but that he should quit, retire, or that he should be impeached, which is what I believe in. I wish we could go back in the days where you could just tar and feather someone and kick them in the ass until they're not moving. I don't know why we don't have that outlaw vigilante justice anymore. When America was great. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Tuesday called on Justice Clarence Thomas to resign or face impeachment for what she depicted as a pattern of ethical breaches. Clarence Thomas should resign, she wrote on Twitter. If not, his failure to disclose income from right-wing organizations, recuse himself from matters involving his wife, and his vote to block the January 6th Commission from key information must be investigated and could serve as grounds for impeachment. Oh, you go, girl. AOC is just the latest in a series of Democratic lawmakers and legal experts who intensify ethical scrutiny of Thomas in the wake of explosive reports last week that exposed his wife's aggressive efforts to help overturn former President Trump's electoral defeat. Woo! That's treason right there, baby. Those revelations raise fresh questions about the justice's refusal to step aside from related cases before the Supreme Court, including at least 10 rulings concerning the 2020 presidential election, without any indication of him recusing. The ruling that has drawn the sharpest criticism came in January, when Thomas was the only justice who dissented in an 8-1 ruling that cleared the way for House investigators probing the January 6th insurrection to obtain Trump-era White House records. Ugh. This vote attracted renewed attention last week after it was reported that in the aftermath of the 2020 election, Thomas's wife, Virginia Thomas, exchanged dozens of text messages with then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows that appeared to show her strategizing over how to bypass the will of American voters to install Trump for a second White House term despite his loss to President Biden, an outcome she described as an obvious fraud and the greatest heist of our history. The revelations have prompted growing calls for Clarence Thomas to recuse himself from future cases involving disputes over the 2020 election and the January 6th insurrection. Others, like AOC, have gone further in calling for Thomas to resign or be forced off the bench through impeachment. Oh, I would love it. Supreme Court justices, unlike judges on lower federal courts, are not bound by a code of conduct and are permitted to decide for themselves whether recusal is appropriate. Well, you gotta change that. Obviously. That's step fucking number 1. But yeah, I'm right there with you, AOC. I would go even further, but I don't want this podcast to be kicked off. So, yeah, I'm right there with you, girl. I'm right there with for all the people calling for either an investigation, which I think should be done regardless, but he absolutely should be impeached. And if he has any pride, he should resign. But it's not going to happen. He's a cocksucker, Dan. He's awful. He's awful. By far, the worst Supreme Court justice in my lifetime so far. And I'll just mention this in passing because it literally just happened, but it's disgusting that it took this long. President Biden today signs into law first anti-lynching bill in U.S. history. It's 2022, baby. We just are making lynching a federal hate crime. The new law comes after more than 200 attempts to codify federal anti-lynching legislation has failed. Are you kidding me? 200 times they've tried to do this and it's failed. This is why we need to teach, you can call it critical race theory, you can teach it actual history. You need to teach what lynching is to kids, why it happened, what kind of country we had back then, and how it is affecting us today. We need to be taught these things so that we're not living in a fog of lies and misperception. We're blind to reality. I don't think I saw my first lynching black and white photo until I was in, oh God, definitely was not in middle school. I may have been in, no, maybe I was in middle school, but I was old, 7th or 8th grade. Now, I'm not going to say kindergartners, second graders should be seeing this shit, but I remember I was horrified and I had no idea this happened at a point where I should have known this had happened, is my point. There were some very important moments of history in this country's history that I had never heard of until much later in life. And it's disgusting. You need to know these things. You need to know the dark underbelly of your nation's history so that you're aware of the signs. You don't think Germans are going to be more acutely aware to horrific politicians based on their history? Maybe that's the reason why, since World War II, they have not ever elected someone that far right or even moderately right. Well, I say that without actually being 100% on that. But take me at my word. I know what I'm talking about. Under the new law, a crime would be prosecuted as a lynching when deaths are serious. But okay, we know what lynching is. There is over 6,500 nearly documented racial terror lynchings between 1865 and 1950. Just think about that. 6,500 that we know of terror lynchings. I don't know why they have to call it terror. Any lynching is a terror lynching when it's done for racist reasons. Unpunished, by the way. 1865 through 1950. There were still lynchings in 1950. That's not that long ago, people. Some of those people are still alive. Not the people that got lynched, of course, but the lynchers. Jesus Christ. We need to know these things. So I applaud Biden signing this into effect, but good God, it's 2022. It just got signed into law. It failed 200 times. I don't want to hear how America's not a racist country. Every country is racist. That I believe. But it's what they do with that knowledge. If they use it as a tool, awful. If they use it as a weapon, even worse. If they use it as a learning lesson on how not to do it again, perfect. That's what we should do. That's as close to a utopia as you're going to get. Using your country's history, analyzing it, and looking at it through today's lenses and say, what can we do today to make sure that never happens again? Are we seeing it now and anywhere? And why is that? Don't come at it with a judgmental perspective. Look at it as a teaching tool and an analyzation tool. How can we make sure these horrific things never happen again? If you see, for Poland, an example, if you see Poland is sliding to the right, you need to understand why. Based on our history, why have we gotten to this point? Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir, I believe, but that's the news, and it went way too long, just like I feared. Oh, Christ, I am such a blowhard. I cannot believe that I talked 3 news stories for over 40 minutes. I cannot believe it. I told myself, you can do these 3 in under 15 minutes, and I went a half hour over, baby. So now I have to rush through these topics that I wanted to spend more time on, but c'est la vie. So, I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about the movies that changed me. And the caveat here is that these are movies that I saw brand new in the movie theater. Not ones I watched at home or at a friend's house or that were 30, 40, 50 years old and I just saw them recently. No. All these movies that I saw were brand spanking new. Saw them in the movie theater and I was a different person leaving the theater as I went in. So this is just a short list of movies that I just could think of off the top of my head. I'm sure I've missed some. And movies, if you're listening, which I know you are, I'm sorry that I forgot you. I'll save the best for last. But the first movie I ever saw in the movie theater, to my recollection, was The Beauty and the Beast. And that movie fucked me up in a good and a bad way. It fucked me up in a bad way because it was the first time that a movie scared me, or maybe didn't scare me, but it filled me up with so much emotion that I couldn't take it. I remember the climactic fight scene on top of the Beast's castle with Gaston and the Beast fighting. It was so much action and violence and bright colors and the music. It was just too much for my... God, when did that movie come out? 91, so I must have been 5 or 6, maybe even 4, I don't know. And I remember I had to physically turn myself around in my chair, and I stuck my head into those dirty, disgusting bottom of the chair. Like, I had to just hide myself because it was too fucking much. So I missed Gaston getting thrown off the castle because I just couldn't take it. I remember it was the first time I had anything that could maybe be resembled a panic attack, but I just remember it was too much for me. It was something I had never seen before, and I couldn't take it. I had to look away. Kind of like Lot's wife from the Bible. He said, "Bitch, don't look." And that bitch looked, and then she got turned to salt. I didn't look. I listened, and I did not get turned to salt. But that was the first movie that I saw in the movie theater that gave me such a overwhelming emotional response. And then I think the next Disney movie I saw was The Lion King. And I was a little bit older, but I will say that movie did change me a little bit because I think that may have been the first animated movie where I realized there was more to the movie than what I was seeing. And then, of course, later in life, I realized there was a Shakespearean play and Durka Durka Durka, and I have a whole new respect for that movie now as an adult. But seeing The Lion King, brand spanking new, as a kid, I distinctly remember saying to myself, oh, this is more than just a movie about lions and hyenas. You know what I'm saying? There was more to it than that. I also saw that movie on a double feature with Angels in the Outfield. Oh, I love that movie. That movie didn't change me in any way. I just enjoyed that movie. Let's see. Moving on here. Let's see. Oh, Gladiator. I think that was the first movie that was truly an epic that I ever saw in the theater. And I remember it being compared to the classic movie Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, I believe from the 50s. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. It could be from the 60s. Right, by the way, I've never seen Ben-Hur, which is on my bucket list to watch. But from the moment Gladiator started, I realized this is the movie for me. And I will still say Gladiator is probably top 10, top 15 movies all time for me. A lot of that has to do with my first viewing of it in the movie theater with, I believe, who did I see it? Did I see it with my dad? I don't remember. I remember I saw it with other people. It wasn't just me and a parent. I think we had some friends there too. I was a little bit older. I believe I was in middle school, and I already was heavily into ancient history, ancient civilizations, specifically Rome and Greek. And so I was all about Gladiator. And Gladiator really was the first historical epic that I saw that made me want to see as many of those types of movies as I could, and I went on a big spree afterwards. Braveheart is up there, of course. The some of the older movies like Ben-Hur. I can't think of any examples now, of course, of these historical epics. Oh, Spartacus, that was an excellent one. In fact, I may have to rewatch that again. And of course, later on, you had Troy and Kingdom of Heaven, and Gladiator and Braveheart really kicked off the saturation of these historical epic movies. A lot of them were shit. So that's a problem with Hollywood, is one movie nails it, and then you get dozens and dozens and dozens of copycat movies that never quite reach the pinnacle of what that initial movie was. Pulp Fiction had the same thing. After Pulp Fiction, how many movies were trying to be like the new Quentin Tarantino, you know? And just look what's happening now with the superhero movies, with those Transformer movies, Fast and Furious movies. One movie hits it out of the park, and then it just gets overdone. But I will say Gladiator was the first movie where I was glued to my chair. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I truly believed that somehow the director and the actors went back in time to ancient Rome. And like I said, I still hold Gladiator in very high esteem. And that movie gave me the love and admiration for the historical epic, which I still like to this day. Whenever I see a trailer for a new movie that's kind of about ancient history or whatnot, I get excited. I don't see as many as I used to because most of them are shit these days, and they're done cheaply, and they're an oversaturation of CGI, which Gladiator had a good balance of new age CGI, but with practical effects. But, since we're on the topic of epics here, I will say that the last Dune movie, which I have talked so much about, that was probably the first movie I saw since another movie I'm going to talk about later, where it was a orgasmic experience, where I didn't feel like I was watching a movie. Dune made me feel like I was watching a documentary, and I cannot wait for the sequel. Now, I gotta split a little hairs here and say that I have only seen Dune once, and I was with my friends in an IMAX theater, drunk and stoned to the gills. So I really do want to watch it sober by myself and see if it still holds up with the emotional response I had to it. But I will say, Dune, it did something that I haven't experienced in probably over a decade. I am getting so into these characters. The cinematography is gorgeous. The music. Just everything about the storytelling. Now, it's not a perfect movie. If you want me to go back to that podcast and I reviewed it, if you really want me to go into it. But I will say that movie was the last movie I saw. The Batman came close, but not quite as Dune, where I left the movie theater saying, wow, I did not expect that. I am on cloud nine, and it's instantly probably top 20 best movie I ever saw. And I probably will have to take that statement back once I watch it again, or multiple viewings. But yeah, leaving that movie theater, I was like shaking. I was vibrating. I just couldn't believe that at this age, with the thousands and thousands of movies that I've seen in my life, I still can get a response like that. So, whew. A movie that came close to that was Blade Runner 2049. There was a Natalie Portman movie, Annihilation. And there was a third one. I don't think I saw Arrival in theaters with Jeremy Renner and Amy Adams. Maybe I did. But those three movies came close to that. Something new. They took a plot, or made it a sequel in the example of Blade Runner 2049, and they did just enough to make it a totally unique and new experience. But they're not quite to the levels of Dune and Gladiator. Now, there's two other movies I want to talk about, but before I go into that, I do want to have a few mentions, movies that just missed the cut. I've already talked a little bit, a few of them, but these were movies that changed me, but I didn't see them in the movie theater. The first movie that made me sob, cry, and I just broke down, and I had to be consoled by my parents, was the original Blob movie. The black and white one with, what's that guy's name? Not Charlton Heston. He was in Bullet. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen's the Blob. I was far too young to watch that movie. I must have been a toddler. So, bad parenting. And there was a scene where the Blob dies, and it lets out a blood-curdling death rattle, a wail. And I felt it down to my genetic core. My bones shook when I heard that death scream. And I just started sobbing and crying. I threw a tantrum. And I believe we had a couple family members over. My father picked me up, took me outside, sat me down, tried talking to me. My sister came out. My mom came out. I was just so distraught that the creature had to die. I remember my sister saying, Angelo, the Blob was the bad thing in the movie. It was the villain. It was killing people. And I just could not understand why it had to die in such a way. I will say the first Blade Runner was amazing. Most Stanley Kubrick movies, the first time I saw them, blew me away. Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, I could go on and on and on. Deus Ex Machina, the Oscar Isaac movie that came out a couple years ago. Oh God, I love Oscar Isaac. Again, so many tummy kisses right there. But those are those movies that are coming to off the top of my head right now. I'm sure I'm missing some milestone movies. A Fish Called Wanda, I love. But anyway, now we're down to the final two. And I really can't... I can't rank them as 1 and 2. I really can't. Oh, I forgot one. So back up. There is the first superhero movie that I ever saw that kind of changed my outlook on what a superhero movie could be was the very shitty Batman Forever movie with Val Kilmer and Chris O'Donnell and Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones. I must have been in elementary school when that came out, but I was getting to the point where I was almost going into middle school. So I want to say 3rd grade, 4th grade maybe. And when I saw Nicole Kidman, I thought, ooh, my penis is moving a little bit. And I was already a giant fan of Jim Carrey because of the Ace Ventura movies and The Mask. And I didn't know who Tommy Lee Jones was, but I knew my parents loved him. And just the bright lights, the sexiness of it, the action, the soundtrack, Seal's Kiss by a Rose. Oh, that's one of my go-to karaoke songs, by the way. I don't do it justice, surprisingly, but I love that fucking song. I bought all the action figures. I mean, I was such a dork. Watching that movie now, it's so cringy and so atrocious, but when I was such a young age, I loved Batman because I would watch the animated show every Saturday morning. And so I was super pumped to watch my first Batman live action movie because I was too young. I missed the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton Batman movies. I was too young. By the way, I still say Batman Returns has got to be the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 best Batman movie ever. So there's, I mentioned, the first superhero movie I ever saw before Marvel, before this new DC iteration. Batman Forever did it for me. But the two movies that I think of every day, multiple times, and I follow YouTube channels about the history of these franchises. The first one is Jurassic Park. That movie, I can say, changed me in ways that no other movie has done before or after, except one, which I'm going to get to after this. I don't know if I can tell you that I love anything more than dinosaurs. I mean, probably my first word was probably Velociraptor. And I had all the dinosaur books as a kid. I mean, I'm talking infant. Like, my childhood first books were dinosaur books made for teenagers or in colleges. And I would read all of them. I knew so many dinosaur names. I had a dinosaur encyclopedia. I think I still have it somewhere. That it was, I think, over 1,000 pages long. And each page had a new dinosaur on it with the Latin name and the current known characteristics. And I must have looked at that book every day for years. I loved that book. I had countless dinosaur toys. My mom tried getting me into collecting stamps, and the first stamps I ever got were dinosaur ones. I remember one of my first vacations in my life was to the Oregon coast, and we looked at fossilized dinosaur footprints. And I just was infatuated and obsessed with dinosaurs. In fact, the first job I ever wanted to do was a paleontologist until I realized all the math I had to know. And I said, fuck that. I just want to dig up dinosaurs and name them. I don't want to have to do math and science and shit. And so when I heard about Jurassic Park, I said, hey, Mom, we have to go see this movie. And that movie came out in 93. And I was maybe 6 or 7. And she said, you were far too young to be watching a horror movie like that. She called it a horror movie, and she wasn't wrong. But I begged her, and I begged her, and I begged her. And I remember my sister even saying, Mom, you know how much Angelo loves dinosaurs. He can take it. So, I don't think I was ever more excited to watch a movie that the payoff was worth the excitement. There was other movies I was super excited for, but the movies were shit. That Godzilla American movie with Matthew Broderick as a worm scientist, I was as excited about that Godzilla movie as I was Jurassic Park, but at 20 minutes into that Godzilla movie, again, I must have been 12 or 11, remember thinking, this movie's fucking shit. But Jurassic Park, from beginning to end, I don't think I blinked. I don't think I moved. And to this day, I will be the first to tell you that the sequels, most of them are trash. I like The Lost World, the Jurassic Park direct sequel, but you know, when the T-Rex, okay, spoiler, but if you haven't seen Jurassic Park or The Lost World, go fuck yourself. I don't know what's wrong with you. When the T-Rex goes to San Francisco, even at a young age, I called bullshit in the movie theater. But I've seen every single Jurassic Park movie in the movie theaters as a tradition. I'm no fan of the Jurassic World movies, but I love them. I don't know if there was another movie franchise where I can say, out of the 5 movies? Yeah, there's been 5 Jurassic Park movies. The 6th one's coming out here soon, which I'm going to go see, even though it doesn't look that good to me. Out of the 5 movies, I can say 1.5 are good. You know, one, maybe two. But I still see them. I still get excited. I still follow YouTube channels solely devoted to the history of the Jurassic Park movies. And by the way, I have read the Jurassic Park book and the Lost World book probably dozens and dozens of times. So that was probably the first movie in my life where the hype matched the excitement and the payoff, and that I left the movie theater saying, this is part of my life now. This is a part of me, my personality, for better or worse. The toys, the video games, the clothing, you name it. I can watch Jurassic Park on mute and probably say all the dialogue. But anyway, the number one movie, even more so than Jurassic Park, that did everything Jurassic Park did, but just at a higher level. It's almost like Jurassic Park on steroids, was of course the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I don't think I have enjoyed anything in my life as much as watching Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, first viewing in the movie theaters. Sex, love, food, times with family or friends, accomplishments, promotions, if and when I ever get married or a birth of a child, I don't think anything will match what I was thinking and feeling when I saw those first three Lord of the Rings movies. Now, the Hobbit sequels, they're abortions. Fuck those movies. I can't put into words. There is no word in the human language, in any form of language, Spanish, Italian, you name it, that can encompass my love of those movies. And the books, and the history, everything, the characters, you name it. And I've said in the past on these podcasts that I don't like how people take things that they shouldn't and say that, well, that's my personality. I'm a Christian, that's my personality. I'm a Republican, that's my personality. I'm a vegan, that's my personality. It's stupid. I do CrossFit, that's my personality. I hate all that shit. However, I will say, Lord of the Rings, definitely my personality. I think if there is such a thing as God or heaven, and that if and when I die, and I get to choose what I want to do after I die, let's say heaven is real, and St. Peter at the pearly gates is saying, I guess we'll let you in, Angelo. What do you want to do? I will say, I want to go to a fantasy world like Lord of the Rings, and I want to be a goddamn hobbit. I already look like a hobbit. I'm short, stout. I don't have hairy feet, but I can work on it. I love beer. I love weed. I love gardening. I love food. I mean, I'm a hobbit, bitch. Come on, man. I mean, I could do a whole podcast about my love and admiration and obsession with Lord of the Rings. And not just the movies, mind you. Again, the books. I have read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, God, easily 10 or 12 times. I've read the Silmarillion a few times. I've read the Unfinished Tales a few times. I've even read some of the unfinished content that J.R.R. Tolkien's son was writing, and even he couldn't finish it, so now his grandson is writing stuff. I consume all of it like a fat kid at a candy store. I love it. I fucking love it. So yeah, probably number 1A and number 1B would be Jurassic Park and Lord of the Rings as the movies that I can honestly tell you changed my life for the better. I forgot about another one. Honorable mention, Signs, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. That movie scared the shit out of me. That was the first movie that scared me so much I could not sleep for days after. And I was in high school when that movie came out. I feel like I should have known. I was pretty mature by then. There's just something about Signs. Even though the fucking payoff is dumb as shit. The aliens are allergic to water. Fuck you, M. Night Shyamalan. Why would the aliens come to a planet that's 70% water and it kills them? Go fuck yourself. That's like if humans went to a planet where 70% of the planet is knives and guns. What are you doing? Come on. But everything leading up to that, it was a great movie. I still hold it in high esteem, but Jesus Christ, it scared the shit out of me. I remember not being able to sleep at home and positioning glasses of water all around my bed and room because I kept telling myself, it's a movie. Aliens aren't real like that. It's not going to happen. But I was horrified. And the one scene that did it, the one scene where I think if I was a cat, I would have lost 8 out of 9 lives, was when they were watching the news. I think it was Joaquin Phoenix was watching the news. And on the news it said, no, we're going to show you some graphic content, but here's home video footage of, I think it was in Brazil or something. And there was that long shot of like a kid's birthday party. And someone was videoing outside in the street. And all of a sudden, you're just waiting. The music's building, and then you just see an alien walk across the street. I literally sunk in my chair, turned pale and white. I'm surprised I didn't shit and piss and come and bleed myself to death because it was too much. I almost went running out of the theater. I distinctly remember that. It just triggered something in me. And the only other time that I can remember being triggered like that was in that Natalie Portman movie, Annihilation, when that man-bear pig was attacking. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Watch Annihilation. It's a group of women that go into this scientific anomaly in, I think, Maine. And I don't want to give anything away. Oscar Isaac's in it. Wow. And it's just a mind fuck. And there is a monster, a flat out monster that they perfected. It's horrific. If hell exists, definitely that man bear pig thing is in there. So that was an honorable mention. It's down on the list, not as high as Jurassic Park and Lord of the Rings. But anyway, that's one of the topics I want to talk about. And then we have time to talk about one more, which is realistically, people, with everything going on in the world, climate change, the threat of World War III, nuclear annihilation, this mindset of if you're not with us, you're against us in this country, the possibility of a civil war. How much time do we have left in this country to be comfortable? Because I'm sorry, we are still one of the most privileged, if not the most privileged nation in the world. And when I hear us bitching about things that are just of no consequence, I feel like saying, and sometimes I do, say to these people, look what's happening in the world. Look what's happening in Somalia and Yemen and the Ukraine. What the fuck are you talking about? How would you like to be in Palestine right now? How would you like to be literally in any third world nation, or in fact, a second world nation? You're in the greediest, fattest, most consumptionary country that the world has ever known. And you're sitting here bitching about Ketanji Jackson or critical race theory or Will Smith or Hunter Biden. Like, what the fuck is wrong with us? Anyway, but let's discuss. So I think the magic number is 10 years. We have until 2032, maybe less, for us to have this comfortable life still. Because if we kept electing dinosaurs to lead the country, which all signs point to, that's what's going to happen in the next election, I can't imagine some 70-year-old white male is going to really give a shit about climate change. I don't think they're going to give a shit about income inequality, fixing the police, healthcare. I mean, you name it. You can go down the laundry list of issues that this country has, let alone corporate greed, term limits. The list goes on and on and on. So you look at all this shit. Some people still talk about climate change because to me, that's the number one threat and issue in the world, not just in this country, but in the world. People still talk like it's on the horizon. And many of these people are elected officials. And when you remind them, no, it's not on the horizon. It's here. It's been here. It's been happening for decades. Surely you can look out the window and see what the fuck is going on. And what are we doing about it? What the fuck are we doing about it? To Biden's credit, he did put a lot of climate change initiatives in, was it the Build Back Better plan or was it the infrastructure? I don't remember. The Democrats are their own worst enemy. They can't work together. And it got cut down. And we're still arguing about fossil fuel subsidies, for crying out loud. Joe Manchin's cuck ass is still talking about opening up new coal mines. We want to expand oil production. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? And you look at people who are elected, who are trying to do good, they're still the minority. I don't know your personal preference about the Squad or AOC or whatnot, but outside of the Squad and AOC and maybe a few middle-aged politicians, meaning 40 and 50, a few of them are taking climate change seriously. But they're not the president. They're not the chief of staff. They're not in any elected position or in a cabinet position that they can affect actual fast-needed change. You almost need to wipe the slate clean and start all over again. I mean, Miami is going to be underwater here any minute, and people don't give a fuck. Miami is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's going to be in the fucking ocean. It's going to be the new Atlantis any day now. I mean, and the forest fires that are happening out here in California and Oregon and the Midwest. I mean, it's insanity. So that's why I say we probably have 10 more years before the shit is hitting the fan so bad the fan stops running because the gears are clogged. The shit has hit the fan decades ago. It's already here. And I love it. I love it when people, usually old fucks, are bitching about refugees and illegal immigrants and blah, 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 blah. And I always remind them, if you think it's bad now, if you think it's so out of line and out of order right now, just wait till the ocean levels rise to the point where many of these coastal cities, coastal nations that are third world, second world, are flooded and they can't survive. They can't live there. You're going to see a mass exodus that's going to be in the hundreds of millions. Okay? And suddenly, a few thousand people at the Mexican border doesn't look so bad. Which, by the way, can you imagine if we had the love of Hispanic refugees as we have with Ukrainian refugees? I wonder what the difference is. Surely it's not their skin color. But yeah, how can you look at the future and be hopeful when it comes to climate change? And do you really think, outside of climate change, that we are going to have someone in this country be elected, someone like a AOC or a Marianne Williamson or a Bernie Sanders, or even Bernie Sanders? I mean, do we really want a 77-year-old, or he may be even damn near 80? I mean, do we want that again? I don't know. I mean, the substance is there with Bernie, but I just don't know. I don't want to be ageist, but I don't know. But do you really see someone on the horizon that is going to say, you know what? Fuck all the military budgets. Fuck all of this Patriot Act nonsense. Fuck all the subsidies we're giving out. Fuck all the tax havens that billionaires are doing. We're going to wipe the slate clean and start over fresh and new. And we're going to put a lot of money into green energy. We're going to rethink how we do fishing, how we do hunting, how we do infrastructure. Healthcare is now going to be free because guess what? Air quality is getting worse and worse and worse. And without healthcare, you're going to fucking die if the air is poisoning you. It's already on the rise. But still, the fucking boomers, when they hear anything like this, they think, socialism. I thought we lived in America. Freedom. So that's why I say, unless we get another COVID strain that literally wipes out the mass majority of the boomers, I can't imagine we're going to be moving in the right direction quick enough. We should have already been here. We should have been moving in the right direction in the 80s when we had all this information, and yet we did fucking nothing. We did baby steps, don't get me wrong, but we did fucking nothing overall. So that's why I look ahead and I think, well, comfortably, we got about a decade. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe it's 15 years. Maybe it's 20 years. Maybe in a year or two, something truly magical or miraculous will happen and we will shake off these chains that are holding us down in terms of progress when it comes to such common sense, important issues. Again, climate change, healthcare, housing, police reform, income inequality. I mean, Jesus, come on. Having a safety net. If you're a Democrat, look at the field. Who do you believe in? If you're a Republican, you already know. Republicans don't believe in anything that doesn't help rich people or the military. And all the Republicans do is go against whatever the Democrats want to do. So the Republicans don't believe in anything. The Republicans haven't had a new thought since Reagan, and those thoughts were racist and sexist and horrific even then. So the Democrats, if they're our only hope, I mean, good God, we're going to be Alderaan here soon. Just blow us up. End it. End the suffering, baby. You need to have more parties, political parties, whether that be progressive, whether that be libertarian, whether that be a freedom party. I've always talked about, if I ever ran for president, I would try to be kind of a progressive Donald Trump in the way that I would speak and insult, and just, I wouldn't talk to PC, I wouldn't talk to HR speech, I wouldn't talk to political speech. I would talk like Americans. I don't think we're that different. I don't think people in Washington and people in Mississippi are that fucking different. Texas and New York, we're not that different. You may look at a map and say, well, they're a red state, so they're a bunch of hicks. Well, they're a blue state, they're full of a bunch of cucks. No. The mass majority of us, I truly believe, want the same goddamn things. And the things that are getting in the way are greed, mostly corporate greed, corruption, and just laziness. And again, I hate to be ageist, but old people hate change. And this whole idea of, well, once you get older, you'll get more conservative. I don't think so. I don't think that's happening. I think our generation is going to get more left, which is good because most moderate Democrats, including our president, are basically Republicans at this point. So when I look at the squad that are considered far left socialist progressives, to me, they're actually Democrats. They're actually like the old school Democrats, the FDR kind of Democrats. But with the Fox Newses of the world and the MSNBCs of the world, CNNs of the world, it just gets muddled. And it just gets, again, it gets divisive. It's like, it's the Yankees versus the Red Sox. It's all us versus them mentality. It's ridiculous. We have it for politics. We have it for religion. And I don't think it's going to stop. We are the laziest, greediest, fattest, most blind to our own blindness nation that has ever existed. We really think we're top dog, and we have no way of backing it up. We look at stats that say, out of all of the civilized world, we are dead last in education. Well, then there must be something wrong with the quiz. There must be something wrong with that chart. Surely we're not that dumb. Yeah, we are. We're pretty goddamn ignorant. So that's why I just don't have much hope. I can work on myself. I have hope for myself. I could do what I can for myself, my loved ones, and the people around me. But besides voting and donating money to politicians around the country, what the fuck can you do as a single individual? It's like Russia and Ukraine. I would love to do more. I would love to house as many Ukrainian refugees as I can here. But it didn't happen. It's not that easy. I can't go to a board and say, give me 5 of the hottest Ukrainians. Let's bring them over. It ain't going to happen that way. So I hope I'm wrong. Feel free to reach out, leave a comment, or send me a DM or something. If you think we have a longer time or a shorter time, or if I'm missing something, let me know. But with that, I think we can wrap up. I meant to have this podcast be about a half hour, and it's going to be damn near over an hour and 15 minutes. So I can't. I have organization skills of a toddler. I swear to Christ. Once you get going, it's hard for me to stop. I don't know why I thought I could cover the Don't Say Gay bill in 5 minutes, but Jesus Christ, that's a fail. But with that, I love y'all. Take it sleazy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And don't be a judgmental cunt. And just briefly, Will Smith is an asshole. Jada Pinkett Smith is an asshole. And Hunter Biden's an asshole. All the Republicans that were asking those fucking outrageous questions to Ketanji Brown's an asshole. Specifically Holly and Cawthorn, that cripple bitch. And Leah Thomas, that transgender swimmer who once was a man and now is a woman and is just breaking all swimming records. And even though when you see them all positioned together, she looks like to be a good 5 feet taller than the women. And that bulge is even bigger than mine, baby. It's not fair. So she's an asshole. And Caitlyn Jenner's an asshole. The assholes don't stop. So, yeah, there's a lot of assholes out there, but I think the good outweigh the bad overall. But with that, I'm going to end it here. Peace, y'all. I love you, bitches. Later.